Good afternoon. Thanks a lot, Michael, for this very kind introduction. So I hope you had a good lunch. I certainly had. And I thought I'll start off with a quote. That's always good. So Winston Churchill is famous for quotes. You know, certainly the quote he has about democracy, but he's got another quote. The best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. So, well, you may get a good laugh with this one, but if there are some politicians in the room, you can always see some muttering. Well, there is certainly some truth in it. And I'm here to tell you why it is good to have more than just a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. In fact, I'll present you a project where we did a lot of conversation with an average voter, the so-called Citizen Forum. So as you can hear, I don't have a New Zealand accent, I've got a German accent, so I'm talking about Germany. I'm talking about the project we conducted in Germany back in 2011. So we'll start off, with a brief picture. How does Germany look like from the outside perspective? Not too bad, actually. Germany is doing quite well, economically. So we've got Angela Merkel, as you can see, and we've got even a certain level of trust in government. And I would say there is also a certain correlation between trust in government and trust in politicians, what we can see here. So certainly it's not doing that bad. But from the inside perspective, the picture is quite different. And in fact, there isn't much of a difference between Germany and most Western countries. So we've got a growing gap between politicians and the electorate. People are dissatisfied with how political decisions are made. And although they are still interested in politics, I think that's the interesting thing. They are still interested in politics, but they are no longer interested in political parties or the way how politics work. So from a more theoretical approach, I would say politics of delivery ends. A few years ago, citizens were there to provide votes. Politicians delivered results, and citizens were perceived as clients. No, I think this has fundamentally changed. And you can see here a picture from a demonstration in Stuttgart. They demonstrated there just a couple of, a few years ago against a new infrastructure project. Of course, we had these kind of NIMBY, not in my backyard citizens, but it wasn't only about that. It was something much bigger which happened there. So this was the time when we as a foundation decided to develop something new, a new approach how citizens can be engaged in politics. And there are a lot of methods out there, of course, and I know there are a lot of methods being applied in Australia and New Zealand, and I think in a way you're doing much better than we're doing in Germany. And this is why we decided to develop a new approach. And first of all, we are not revolutionaries. So we didn't want to develop a substitute, but rather a complement to representative democracy. The next thing is we actually just wanted to reduce the gap between politics and citizens. I mean, that's not, you would say, well, that's not really ambitious for a project, but on the other hand, I think this is the most important issue when we talk about citizen engagement. How can you reduce the gap, at least? How can you have more communication between citizens and politicians? And one point which is really, really important is there are a lot of participation projects out there which single aim is to generate acceptance for decisions which have already been made. And clearly this leads to even more frustration. Yeah. So the Minister Paula Bennett, she said today, her mantra is, our starting point is yes. Yeah. I would say a lot of ministers in Germany at least, are probably all over the world, they say, our starting point is yes. Yes, how can we convince citizens? How can we communicate better? But not yes, how can we engage with them in a different way? So the Citizens Forum itself, it took place in 2011. It was a nationwide public participation project, and one of our central aims, as I said, was to strengthen democratic skills of citizens and to awaken or to revitalize political interest. So democracy, that's what we thought, need new venues. When I had a discussion a while ago with a German minister, he said, well, I'm doing a lot, so I'm meeting a lot of my people and a lot of my citizens in my constituency, so I have a lot of conversations, but I go to different places and I always meet the same people. So you may say, well, perhaps he's not going to the right places. But it's also that, yes, you meet always the same people because there are only a bunch of people who are engaged in the traditional forms of politics. We came up with a project, as I said, which took place in 2011 in 25 different places. You can see the shape of Germany in between. We have the dots, so these are all participating cities and districts. I would say they were invited by the federal president, so the whole project was initiated by the federal president. So this leads to some problems. I'll come to that later on. So it was initiated by the federal president, which was, of course, quite attractive at the time. And we had altogether 10,000 participants, 400 in each region. So a while ago, I met a lady from a Chinese NGO, and she's doing public participation projects as well. So it does exist in China, which is quite interesting, but that's another topic. And I told her, look, we did this project. It's been a fairly big project, 10,000 participants. And she said, oh, 10,000 participants. I said, yes, 10,000 participants. And she told me, oh, that would be a bus stop in China. So it's all a matter of perspective. It has been, up until now, I would still say the biggest project in Germany. So we've got 3 key features for effective public participation in our forum. First of all, participants were randomly selected, which is really important, but which is also very, very time-consuming. And I don't even speak about money and budget. Yeah. So it's very time-consuming. So, but we consider it as important that as many heterogeneous perspectives as possible flow into a forum, that you don't meet the usual suspects as the minister in Germany. So in order to achieve that, the participants were randomly selected and contacted by telephone. So we worked together with a call center. They randomly selected participants, so they had telephone numbers. They called people and they said, well, we're calling you on behalf of the federal president. It's not too bad, but still a lot of people hang up so straight away. They don't cost you any money. That's not too bad. Some others, they are really happy to have you on the line, so to have a good chat with you. And some say, while you're talking about politics, I'll get you my husband. So you get different reactions, but we wanted to make sure that we have different perspectives. So we had 3 criteria: gender, educational status, and age. And what do you think? So it was easy to find middle-aged engineer. Yeah? That wasn't a problem. But it was quite a problem to get in touch with a young female with a rather low educational status from Eastern Germany. And we had to do a lot of phone calls in order to get them for our forum. So the next feature is that we have a mixture, a combination of offline and online activities. So we start with a one-day opening event, then we've got an online discussion in between, and then we've got another closing event at the end of a 8 weeks period. And we think this is really important, and it is really a striking feature of our forum. So because on these events, people get to know each other quite well. And this is important when you think about an online discussion. Because when people meet online, so the level of the discussion culture, so to say, is sometimes not that high. So we really had a good discussion culture in our online forums. People get familiar with the process during the day, and it also suits different participation needs or individual strength. So traditionally, I would say the blokes are doing quite good in our World Cafes, but we had a lot of senior citizens and also female participants, and they became quite engaged in our online discussion. And so, as I said, participants work online, but they don't only discuss online, they work online on a common text. They are trying to put a common text together. So this is really the focus of our forum, that the way our website is organized ensures that by the end of the project, participants will have produced a written program. So it's not just for the sake of discussion, there is really a tangible result. There is a program at the end of the day. At the time, the topic of our forum was how can we foster social cohesion in our society. So people had a choice of 6 different committees because the main work takes place just in committees. So you don't engage with 10,000 other citizens, you don't even engage with 400 other citizens, you just engage within a group of 50 or 60 different citizens. Because we believe that this is the group size where you can still get to know each other really well and where it is still possible to work on a common text. It is important, as I said, to create a sense of community right from the beginning. So, as in real life, we need a kind of dramatic structure of events. So, if there is a certain climax, we need a kind of foreplay, I would say. Well, you may even, I don't go too deeply into that, but you even need a kind of afterplay there. You need a kind of dramatic structure. So you need a kind of warming up phase, so people had the possibility, the opportunity to get to know the website really well, how the online forum works. They get to know each other really well on the forums, and then they engaged in a discussion in our online forum. The whole thing, the events were organized in a kind of World Cafe format. So you can see it here. So I think you're quite familiar with that. So people are sitting around tables, 4 up to 6 people are sitting at a table. They engage in a discussion. We had so-called table hosts. So these are people who stay at the table and just tell people who are coming later on to this table what actually has taken place so far. So people are moving around in the room, and at the end of the day, they come up with different thoughts and ideas, but not more, just different thoughts and ideas. And in between, you can see it here, so just a sports hall, and the committees were separated by pin boards, and so voting took place in between, and so the whole discussion was kind of funnel-shaped. A lot of ideas at the beginning, and then at the end of the day, just the 4 bullet point suggestions and ideas. And this was the starting point for the online discussion. So because you can't, that's at least our belief, you can't start an online discussion just with a blank and empty page. There need to be something already there. And this is what our participants did during these days. Also, as of course there are always certain restrictions in terms of budget, we had just one facilitator who did the whole thing in one city. So altogether we had 25 facilitators. We trained them in advance, but only one facilitator facilitated the World Café with 400 people. So this is possible. That's what I would like to say. Then let's come to the online deliberation. So how does our website look like? First of all, we believe that it is really important that there is a personal component involved. So participants enter the discussion with their real name and a portrait. So you can see, okay, this is Mr. Banks, and I met him at the opening event. It's quite a nice guy. This is Mrs. Schmidt, and I've seen her before. So just to make it a bit more, well, convenient, familiar for all the participants. So it is a kind of social media component already involved there. Then also the online deliberation was facilitated, but it was facilitated by former participants who participated in one of our pilot projects. So we didn't pay any facilitators, so ordinary citizens facilitated the whole event, the whole online deliberation. And what is really important is we don't interfere in terms of content. So it is really up to the participants to decide or to determine the content. And so in doing this, I think we're quite unique, because quite often there is a certain guidance there. Nevertheless, I would say our approach was well, structured very well, of course, but perhaps it was structured even too well. I mean, probably that's what you expect from a German project. Not much fun, but a good structure at least. And I think a bit too much structure we had. But on the other hand, we believe if you're engaging a project for 6 or for even 8 weeks, at the end of the day, you want to have a certain result. That's important when you're participating in such a project. There needs to be a result. And we didn't interfere in terms of content, but we made sure that all participants have their result at the end of the day. And you can see up there, just well, in the middle of the on the middle of the screen on the left-hand side, this small watch, or this little cake with a piece of cake there. So it should be a watch. And so participants had to complete certain tasks. And some of them, they didn't like it at the beginning. Well, the older guys, they said, well, homework, that's 20 years ago. So, but we said, you've got to complete certain tasks, but it takes you just 5 minutes to complete this task. And it is really important that you do that. Because normally when you start an online deliberation, it's always like that. So it goes up very quickly, then it stays there, I don't know, for a couple of days, and then it goes down very quickly. So how can you make sure that it stays up there? You've got to intervene, at least structurally, from time to time. You've got to get in touch with participants from time to time. We even made a kind of a media bridge, so to say, in that we phoned participants again in the middle of our forum and asked them, what do you think about the whole thing? Do you want to participate a little bit more actively? Things like that. Look, one of the experiences is also that especially elderly are often fascinated with the internet. We talked about digital divide already, and this is an issue, of course. So in our project, participants, they don't need to have a computer. They can go to the library. That's possible. But of course, when they are not digital natives, we need to ensure that they get a certain training. But our experience is that's not really a problem, because the younger generation, they are quite familiar with everything, and they are criticizing the setup of the online forum, whereas elder citizens, they are becoming quite engaged. The outcome of our project were ideas and proposals, and they were debated in a closing event with the federal president in the former German Bundestag, but they were also discussed on the regional level in every every one of these 25 forums, we had closing events, and results of our project were discussed with councillors, with the mayor, with member of parliaments. And of course, they decided there what to do with the results of this project. Of course, when I'm speaking about results of the project, so I've got to tell you, so what are the results? At the beginning, expectations were quite high, because if you have somebody as the federal president involved, so participants think, well, the federal president is involved. To be honest, he's not much more than a figurehead in Germany, so he's rather a queen or Prince Charles of Germany. So, and he doesn't have anything to decide at the end of the day. But people don't know it. They just think, I got an invitation by a federal president, so, and he ensures that all the results will be implemented. So, of course, it is also some kind of political training we deliver. We make sure that citizens get more familiar with political processes, and right from the beginning on, we had something which we called expectation management. So, to ensure some sort, if I may refer to Ellen, of procedural justice. So, you've got to deal with the expectations of citizens, and what we told them right from the beginning is we can't make sure that all the results of the projects are implemented, but we can make sure that you have the chance, the opportunity to discuss your results with relevant politicians. And that's what we did, and not more. That's what we did, and that's what we can do as a foundation. I'd like to share some insights apart from that, which I gained during this project. So first of all, is online the new normal? So we conducted this project in 2011, and at this time, when you approached a minister, he said, well, there is something with the internet, and I've got to do something with the internet. I've got to do something online with citizens. So nowadays, probably they would say, I've got to do something with the social media. But I would say, no, there is still, yeah, you can do that, and it's all good, but there is still a strong desire for face-to-face engagement. And I still believe in face-to-face engagement, and we've got to create a kind of mixture between face-to-face engagement and online deliberation. It's more about different opportunities, different participation opportunities. Then we've got to make sure that we don't reach out just to the usual suspects. Sometimes it is okay to invite just the usual suspects. That's okay. So if you want to build a new infrastructure project, of course, so you've got to invite all the neighbors and things like that. So that's okay. But we really need people from all walks of life beyond, I would say, the well-educated and the eloquent middle class. And that's not that easy. So we have tried it. At the beginning of our project, we said we wanted to have a kind of a representative sample. We didn't really achieve it. I must say, we just made sure that we have people from all walks of life. Yeah. And of course, it's not about love, peace, and harmony. So there is this idea that you've just got to reach out, you've just got to engage with citizens, and then it's just love, peace, and harmony. No, it's definitely not love, peace, and harmony, and some people are really disappointed with the results. Conflicts arise within groups. You've got to deal with these conflicts. And most important, it is not possible to maintain control over the process as a whole. And this is, of course, why traditional policymakers are not very keen on the idea, because you can't maintain control over the whole process. But on the other hand, this is what such a process makes really attractive. I'd like to end with another insight, and this is that there are different definitions of public or civic participation. When you speak to politicians, quite often they are saying we've got to communicate better. We've got to get in touch with our citizens differently, but it's just about communication. But when you speak with citizens, they want to be really directly involved in decision making. And these are, of course, two completely different things. And when you're conducting such a project, you've got to bridge the gap. And this is not that easy. We tried it. I would say we at least partly were successful because we reached out to a new group of people. We set up a process which involved different possibilities to get involved, and we came up with some really tangible results. And yeah, that's our Citizens Forums. That's it from my side. Thank you.